Do you ever get the sense that even though you've done everything right, something still feels like it's missing? Maybe you're in a season where you know a change needs to happen, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Nothing is obviously wrong, yet nothing you do feels fulfilling. You hear that tiny voice in your head whispering, there has to be more, but you never hear anyone else say it out loud. So instead, you ignore that voice. You stay busy, you push forward, you assume it'll pass, but for a lot of people, it doesn't. So let me say the quiet part out loud. At some point in life, we all feel this way. For some people, it shows up once. For others, it returns as life becomes more demanding or as seasons begin to change. The most important thing to understand about feeling lost is this. It isn't rare. It doesn't belong to only one type of person, and it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. The Bible tells us that Solomon was one of the richest and wisest men who ever lived. Over the course of his life, he experienced success, wealth, influence, and everything most people spend their lives chasing. And yet, after seeing all of it, Solomon left us a clue that calls for reflection. He wrote in Ecclesiastes, I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. He didn't come to that realization because he failed, and moments like these don't show up in our lives because we failed either. More often, they appear because something deeper is asking for our attention. What's interesting is how long it took Solomon to come to that realization. It took decades, years of experience, success, and even moral compromise. That tells us something important. These moments don't always feel like something is wrong. They're often brief, subtle, and difficult to pin down, which makes them easy to ignore. Not because we're careless, but because life itself is often lived through trial and error. So we move forward, we try things, we experiment. Some people try to fill the void through achievement or by staying busy. Others look for relief in entertainment, substances, or constant stimulation. And while these distractions can work for a time, over the long run, they tend to dull the signal, pulling us farther from clarity and reinforcing a cycle of avoidance. Which raises an important question. What are you actually avoiding? And what might that have to do with why you feel lost? To understand what we are avoiding, we have to go back to the beginning, to Genesis, the creation story itself. When you look closely at the first chapter, something subtle but important emerges. Purpose doesn't appear first. In fact, it comes last, which helps explain why it's often easier to feel the absence of purpose than it is to immediately find it. When you strip the creation story down to its core, 3 foundational pillars come into focus: intention, identity, and purpose, and they appear in that order. Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 establishes intention. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Creation is deliberate, not random, not accidental. Something exists because it was meant to exist, whether we recognize that meaning or not. Verse 26 defines identity. Mankind is created in God's image and likeness, given agency, stewardship, and dominion. This moment is about more than creation. It's definition. It shows us that being comes before doing. Before any task is assigned, the kind of being we are is established. Verse 28 assigns purpose. Mankind is given direction to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, and to have dominion. Purpose here is not a feeling. It's a role, deeply rooted in responsibility and direction that becomes clear once we step into our true identity. When you zoom out, a clear pattern emerges. Intention comes first, identity is defined next, and purpose follows. This realization matters. It helps explain why purpose often isn't discovered all at once, but recognized gradually through reflection, intentional choice, and the courage to step into unfamiliar ground. In many ways, this is the same framework we move through unconsciously every day. We think, we decide, and then we act. And this is where the shift begins. Sometimes it happens in something as small as a pause, a single deliberate breath. In that moment, your next action gains meaning. You're no longer reacting, you're choosing. That breath matters. It's intentional, because recognizing a pattern is one thing. Choosing to live with intention is another. That moment when awareness becomes deliberate is often the first real step toward purpose. Solomon says the quiet part out loud. something we all feel but rarely articulate. That we labor, strive, and search for meaning while carrying a sense of eternity we can't fully explain. Not everything is meant to be understood all at once, and that's why grounding matters. Solomon was a man of God, but he was also just a man, wrestling with the same question. Why do we feel lost? The creation story offers a framework that helps orient us. When intention comes first, identity is understood, and action follows, purpose begins to take shape. That foundation doesn't remove uncertainty or difficulty, but it does bring direction, coherence, and the ability to move forward with intention. Feeling lost, empty, or without direction is not a net negative position. Acknowledging it can be a moment of clarity rather than weakness. When we understand what that feeling is pointing toward, we regain agency, the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Purpose isn't found through force or urgency, but through attention, honesty, and alignment. Wherever you are, this moment can mark the beginning of a new chapter, one shaped not by distraction, but by meaning, direction, and intention. Big blessings. Gratitude is the attitude. Thanks for sitting with me. Thanks for reflecting. More to come. Keep it real.